Now, the second question, Bishop, is there seems to be a fine line between sharing your opinions and speaking out of turn, that is, talking too much. So, how do you determine whether to speak up in a situation or keep your thoughts to yourself? How do you know the difference?
Well, it's whether or not you have a spirit of respect or not. Abraham literally bargained with God over Sodom and Gomorrah. He literally said, but watch how he says it. He says, now, if you find 50, will you spare the city? And God said, okay, I'll do it for 50. Then Abraham said, well, please let me speak again. What if you find 45? He is actually honoring God in the way he talks to God. You don't approach God with an attitude. You don't tell God off. Well, you certainly don't disagree with him, number one. But Abraham really didn't want God to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot because he was kind of worried about his nephew because who knows what Lot was really doing down there. So he gets all done. But please, as you read that, he literally says, but let me speak once again. Then he says, I know I'm dust, but listen, let me ask you to go to a number lower. It's the way you approach a person of God or God himself. It's the way you talk to them. It's the way you address them. And there's nothing wrong with a person having a question. It's just how you present it. It's just how you say it. It's how you look when you say it.
Amen, amen. And Bishop, some people, when they do mess up, they find it hard to apologize. You can't get them to come back and say, I was wrong. Please forgive me. Maybe if this Lord would have came back and said, listen, Elisha, I was wrong for speaking. But we don't read anywhere where he apologized and tried to get it right. As a matter of fact, he still showed up the next day. If you humble yourself and say, you know what, I spoke too harshly. I was out of turn. I should not have put my mouth on this. Please forgive me.
Right.
How do we know God could have forgave him and we would have had a whole different story here? Right. So you have to be very careful about your mouth. What I wanted to add to that, Bishop, because we can't seem like get away from Elisha. You got to remember, when you're talking to someone that God has given that authority to, remember, you got to remember two things. God anointed that person, but the person selected you. God anointed Elisha, but he never anointed that Lord. He was just appointed to it.
Right.
So sometimes because you're in a position, you feel like you have a right to say something when God ain't never anointed you. You're not. Elisha was the only one that was anointed. And sometimes people in position can go out of turn in their speaking on certain things. Because when you think about it, I don't believe this was that Lord's first time being out of order. Usually once a person gets out of order, they train themselves to be out of order. It won't be the last time unless they get that thing right. They did it before. There's no fear of God. They will do it again. So it's important, amen, that when you do that, get it right. Say, I messed up and apologize and realize you are not as wonderful as you think you are. Okay? Because you form a habit by doing that. Okay? And then the last thing, another thing, when you don't learn to mind your own business, the business will definitely start to mind you. When you don't learn to mind your own business, the business will eventually mind you. Question number 3, Bishop. Was the young Lord, and we kind of talked, was he wrong for what he said to Elijah, or was it the way he said it was wrong, or both of them was wrong?
Both of them was wrong.
Okay. Like I'm done with that. Okay.
Oh, I didn't. I just was. I didn't want to skip down 2 more pages and go ahead of myself.
I only got one.
Okay, I got one now. Okay.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
Both of them was wrong. What he said was wrong, and honestly, the brother was just plain. He didn't make a mistake, just like you're saying. He didn't make a mistake. That was just his demeanor. He was one of the lords to the king. He took his position, so on and so forth. The king was so angry at Elisha that he really wanted to kill Elisha. All right, and that lord just was stepping up, trying to look good in front. This is a whole nother thing. Don't let your mouth get you in trouble. Trying to run with somebody that's already in trouble.
Ooh, that's
the
good.
whole reason God sent that kind of famine and everything, because the king was just simply wrong anyway. But this brother lost his life trying to step up and and companion with somebody that God was not. And the one that God had chosen to bring on to be a blessing, amen, and Elisha was a tremendous blessing. Number one, Elisha had a reputation. I mean, everybody knew this was the prophet of the double portion. I mean, this was no secret. And for that man to stand in front of him like that, Dr. Owens, he was just wrong. Amen. That was all.
That's just flat out wrong. No way to get around it. Amen. He should have had enough fear of God in him not to talk to the man of God like that. And he should have honored God enough to put his mouth on certain things. So those are times that you can get in trouble because you talk too much. You need to learn how to hold your peace. Amen.